Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome to our Administration Policy and Rules Committee, where we have 2 items on the agenda. The members of this committee are Joe Boykin, Jenny Costa-Honeycutt, Reverend Middleton, and myself as the chair, and our chairman, Herb Sass. Item number 1, minutes of November 21.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, is there any deletion or addition? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2 is proposed rule change, 2A.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move to amend the Rule 1.7 of the Rules of Council to allow members of County Council to attend and vote via video conference with the understanding that the chair and a quorum of County Council or the committee must be present at the physical location of the meeting.
All right, there's a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chair, I have a second motion, if I may. I would move to approve an administrative policy to allow boards and commissions appointed by County Council to adopt rules for video conference subject to Rule 1.7 of the Rules of Council, with the understanding that the clerk of council will monitor attendance and report any irregularities or suspected abuse to the chair of county council.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. That concludes our Rules and Policy, Administration Policy and Rules Committee agenda.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Moody.
Sir, Planning Public Works Committee meeting. All members of council serve on this committee. First item is the minutes from November 21. What's the pleasure?
Approval.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Second. Any additions, deletions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 2A, historic designation request. What's the pleasure of the body?
Is that for the Hammond area? Yes, sir. I move for approval on 2A.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item 2B is
Chairman?
request of moratorium. Mr. Pryor.
I move that we amend the ordinance number 2305 to include the Hamlin Beach Community and Historic District subject to the temporary major subdivision moratorium imposed by Charleston County, with the exception of anybody that have the subdivision application in right now is grandfathered in, because we can't tell somebody, you can't do what you already have in. So I just want to make sure we're in legal standards at the county. So if an individual or a company has a subdivision application in right now, they would be exempt from this ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, is this the same, is there an opportunity to opt out of these for people in that area, or?
No, ma'am.
No.
That was only the 10-mile community, because there was an S3, and we changed some to R4 to S3, and so this does not apply. This is already S3. So they can't go back to R4.
She might, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Honeycutt, I think
Yeah.
she was asking about, we wrestled with this a couple of times ago where maybe people that wrote in and said they didn't favor the designation, which we've already gone past, but we can revisit it, but that people may want to not be pulled into the net that's thrown over their houses.
Yes,
And I think where we've usually landed, and some of us have disagreed, but I think where we've usually landed is just whatever map was presented was what we went with. But I've had some concerns too about that, where people may live in the middle of the neighborhood that don't want to be in this designation area. So that was, I think, what Ms. Honeycutt's asking.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think this will be different, because we changed the zoning from R4 to S3. This is already zoned S3.
Yeah,
So it
Miss-
wouldn't be no up zoning. Somebody can come in and do an up zoning.
Yeah, Mr. Moody was correct. I was actually referring to the designation in the prior motion, but nonetheless, I thought there were a couple of people who said they didn't want to be in this Hamlin
In
law.
Hamlin? I
And
thought,
couldn't-
I didn't hear anything.
Okay.
But if somebody comes, they got a right to come out, but, I'll listen, but
Okay.
I didn't hear anything.
Mr. Warman.
I think we got there. I think the point was basically what you'd said, Mr. Moody, that like the ordinance by itself as far as my understanding, is that it is sort of a, as the map is drawn, one all for one for all type thing. So you would basically, I think you would have to be amending the map at that point. I'm getting some nods from our staff who knows that much better than I do. So I think that is the default position.
Boykin.
Mr. Chair, can we leave this for discussion for council to revisit? We can amend it if necessary
On Tuesday.
on Tuesday.
Well, we've got to take care of this item 2B right here first, though.
Sure. Exactly.
We can certainly bring it back and discuss it. Mr. Pryor made the motion. Mr. Boykin, I think you seconded it. Any more discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. 1 nay, 8 ayes.
Who was an A?
Me, I just don't do moratoriums. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That wraps us up. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I need to change my vote to a nay on that as well.
7-2 is the count. 7 ayes, 2 nays. That concludes planning and public works, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. We'll convene our Finance Committee meeting. All members are members of the Finance Committee. Approval of the minutes of November 19. Moved and seconded for approval of the minutes. Are there any questions, additions, deletions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Presentations, Trident United Way Partnership with Library. Ms. Craig, are you going to make a presentation for us?
Yes, Council, thank you. Good evening, Council, and thank you for your time this evening. I am Angela Craig, Executive Director of the Charleston County Public Library. I am very excited to talk about the opportunity that we have for a lease agreement with the Trident United Way. We are currently in the renovation part of our main library per the referendum, and there is space at the back part of Main, which is the former admin area where we used to reside. My office used to be there, all of our back of house services. Now we have the support services right down the road. That is where we live. There is about 11,000 square feet, give or take, and this is our former admin offices. There is a separate entrance to this particular area, and it would be a wonderful opportunity for partners such as Trident United Way to leverage the space. We are seeing increasingly within Charleston County need for wraparound services. We very much focus on literacy, workforce development, and educational support with Charleston County, but we are seeing a growing need for financial literacy, legal resources, help with health literacy, things that we are not actually equipped to handle, but that we do make referral services. The resource center that the Trident United Way would be able to bring into the main library would be leveraged at main library and also could cascade out to all of our 18 library locations. I have to talk about the partnership and the lease agreement. Mr. DJ Hampton, he is the CEO of Trident United Way, and he's going to talk about the Trident United Way piece.
Thank you. Hello, and thank you, Council. As mentioned, my name is DJ Hampton, President and CEO at Trident United Way, and we're really excited to introduce you to what is a model that's been working for over 30 years in Berkeley and Dorchester County called the Resource Connection Center model. These Resource Connection Centers bring dozens of nonprofits to one spot to help families when they're at their most vulnerable. Think hardworking families working to make ends meet just can't because costs have gone up faster than wages. And what we see at these centers is that we bring together over 15 to 20 nonprofits to really wrap their arms around a family. We've got a set of packets here that we would love to pass out to you. And as part of that, on the right-hand side of that packet, we've included a number of nonprofits that you would see that would be in-house, full-time, a number of groups that collaborate with outside of the centers, and those who provide classes and others. But that list, which is pretty long, covers everything from client referrals to organizations there, financial assistance when you're talking about rent assistance, eviction prevention, financial literacy, basic needs such as legal aid, health services, food assistance, health literacy and mental health services, and workforce development and youth and family programs. These programs really do help individuals when they are struggling. And why would we be looking to potentially have one at CCPL's main branch at Calhoun? The answer is very simple. there has been a massive spike in need, not only in that immediate area, but in the workforce that is downtown. And the need of a resource connection center is pretty high. We look at the data, and I'll talk about that data in just a second, and we see that within a very small radius, there's over 7,861 individuals in 3,000 households that fall into this bucket that we call Alice, and I'll introduce you to Alice in just a second. It's a high foot traffic location on a central bus line, easily accessible from those working downtown, but also accessible for those families in the high traffic that you see in the library every day. And when we think about libraries, we know they are one of the last bastions of public trust and respect. What we see at libraries is this confluence of everything from community support to individuals coming in asking for assistance to people helping navigate a very complex world and classes. It is a place that people trust, but it's also a location where people are looking for assistance. When we think about it, churches, beauty salons, they all play important roles. Libraries are right up there along with them. And when we look at the library, we were looking at some of the data, and there's over 200,000 visits. And when we look at the number of families who need assistance coming in and trusting that location, it is a natural place to also be able to see, how can we help you make ends meet? How can we help you get that light bill paid? What are the barriers to remaining employed that we can help remove? And we look at this through the lens of what we call ALICE. ALICE is an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed, but it's just a framework for helping us understand, based on publicly available data, what are the families that are out there that are struggling to make ends meet, employed, making above the federal poverty line, which is $38,000 for a family of four, but not enough to actually afford to live in an area. And when we look at the data for the 29403 area downtown, CCPL Main Library is incredibly situated in a location where half the households in 29403 are what we call ALICE households and are struggling to be able to remain in the neighborhood. That means they're struggling to remain there so the kids can continue to go to school, they're struggling to be able to maintain employment, and they're struggling to be able to just afford to live. And so being able to bring assistance to basic needs, but also helping them find additional jobs, upskilling, increasing household income, and other things become critical functions that a resource connection center can help address at that location. And so I've thrown a lot of data at you very quickly. The other thing I will share with you, I mentioned the federal poverty line in a minute ago, but 28% of the households there are below the federal poverty line, which essentially means that the remaining 22% are above federal poverty line, aren't receiving assistance, but do need a little bit of extra hand up to be able to get back on their feet. And so that's kind of the hope that we were having to bring there. And our hope would be to leverage that infrastructure to provide those resources for thousands of families year after year so that they can continue to be there. And so we'll hand those packets out in just a second. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Angela to share a little bit more.
The partnership model is something that we have been discussing throughout this year. Thank you for the support that I have from my library board. My board chair, Rob Byko, is also here. We have been discussing what this would look like for the entirety of 2024. Maine, being situated downtown, is a wonderful jumping off point for the rest of our 18 library locations. I can say that every single library in our district, and each of you counselors have libraries in your district, have a need presented by the community where we can help them with literacy, workforce development, educational success. But then again, it's the wraparound services that are beyond the scope of the library that the Resource Center would be able to help with. So it wouldn't just be constrained to Main Library. We would be able to cascade out those services to all 18 of our library locations. With having these services at our different library locations, we will be able to, in real time, be able to connect our library patrons to the services that they need. For example, rental assistance, healthcare assistance, legal assistance, things that I can tell you from a granular standpoint. We are getting those reference questions daily from our public for our library staff. What we normally do is we refer them to services, and yes, we have partnered with Trident United Way for those types of services, but to have them in-house as part of our library community would be very, very helpful. There are benefits to the patron. There is a lot of crossover between our library patrons and the clients of Trident United Way. A lot of the patrons that come to the public library are looking for the very resources that the Resource Center offers and vice versa. So we'd be able to have a lot of connection where we can serve them as a library, but then also help them with the services that go beyond that scope. So we work together for that continuation of wraparound services. There are several successful models. DC Public Library has one that is very similar to this, as does Richland Library. We would be the first in this state that would be able to cascade this out to all of our libraries. Most of them have them centralized at just their main library or one location. We're not talking about having Trident United Way offices at all of our libraries. It would be centralized at Maine, but the services and the resources and the help will be able to cascade out to our different library locations. The ask that we are asking for council is move to approve to establish the RCC under a no-cost lease. Trident United Way would cover all renovation, security, and occupancy cost. We would also be able to leverage CCPL's infrastructure to provide essential services to over 1,500 households annually. And we're very happy to take any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I spoke to Ms. Gregg earlier today, and I'm on board with what they're trying to do, but I would ask that we move this forward until Tuesday, so we can take a final vote, but I would ask that legal be involved, and the final contract comes back to us for final approval, which means utilities and, security, and then, the 30 days for right to determination.
Right.
All that's in there, so I would ask that we approve what she's trying to do, but it would come back to us after staff and the attorney works it out with them for a final vote on the initial contract.
I would certainly agree with you. I would think that legal and facilities would have to make sure that everything is as it needs to be for
Yes,
us
sir. Yes,
for
sir.
that to work. And so can I amend that and add facilities to that?
Yes, sir. Good. All right. That's fine.
I just have a question too.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Can
Kabrowski.
we get a second?
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Second.
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Mr. Kabrowski?
I just wanted to say that all these are very admirable things that would make people's lives better, and that's a good thing. But I just wonder, will you still be a library? I mean, you're transforming into a social welfare agency. Don't we have other things that do that? Is that not mission creep is a library a place for reading and learning? And these are all wonderful things that will, again, help people's lives and are needed. But from my perspective, a library would no longer be a library. It would be something, you'd be transforming it into a social welfare agency. I mean, it's just a different thing. I just wonder about that.
That's a wonderful question, Counselor. And to assuage your concerns, we would absolutely still be a public library. This actually helps with mission creep. What we're seeing right now is mission creep. We're being asked by the public for services that we are not equipped to handle. And so being able to have an in-house partner such as Trident United Way, where they would have their own separate entity within Main Library, their own entrance and everything else, we would be able to do referral services so we can still be a library at Main Library and all our other library locations. But when we meet those needs, and I can assure you, we meet them on a daily basis, we would have a vetted partner, one that can give us the right type of resources in real time so that we can continue to be a library and they can help us with those services.
So it would be a library plus. It would no longer be a traditional library. It would be a library plus of being a social welfare agency. It would be a combination from this point on.
No, Trident United Way would be a tenant of the public library. They would operate their own services, but then we would actually coordinate and collaborate as needed for those crossover services that I articulated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reverend Middleton?
Mr. Chair, thank you so much, and thank you, Ms. Craig, Mr. Hampton. And this is a novel partnership. I've seen it work very well in other places. In fact, I think that beyond the scope of what the library traditionally has been able to do, specifically having a church downtown Charleston, the homeless population or those who are experiencing homelessness is vastly increasing as we see the skyrocketing prices of living and that sort of thing in that area. And the library has already been providing services. When we had vaccination clinics, we had it at the library. When we had applications for some of the programs that we offered through the ARPA funds that came through, they were able to go to the library, to fill out some of those things. It had nothing tangentially to do specifically with the library's function, but we recognized that that was a place in all of these communities that people could be helped and they could be served, and professionals would go in that way in order to provide those services. with the Trident United Way, 211 is a number that we all should know. When people need help, sometimes you don't know where to direct them, specifically with food, those who are unhoused, those who need certain things. And I remember years ago that they were looking at the third floor of the library anyway to rent it out to somebody else, to turn it into something that's not like this, but it was more profit generating, for that occupant that was going to rent from the library. So having this kind of partner that can provide a real wraparound service as a tenant would be a plus and a win, not only for those individuals, but literally, using space that potentially would have been not serving anybody well.
Thank you, Mr. Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Craig. And Trident United Way, they're outstanding stewards of money. We all give to them, and they do a great job with it. We have departments in community development and DEOTUS that work in a lot of the spaces that the Trident United Way works in. So I would recommend, Mr. Pryor, if you were so inclined to, you don't have to amend your motion, I don't think, but let's just make sure Mr. Durant's team is involved in these meetings and discussions as well to make sure they're in the loop.
I'm sure I see Ms. Chandra out there now, so I'm sure she'll, Mr. Durant, direct them to be involved. No problem.
That's it. Thank you.
Today that we'd be voting on, I just wanted to make sure.
I'm sorry. Yeah, there was not. I'm sorry. I misspoke, Mr. Borowski. I'm sorry.
We will actually be voting on this Tuesday. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Well, but it's got a
Committee
good catch.
recommendation.
make a recommendation, and then it goes to council.
Good catch.
Just
Yeah.
something.
Good catch. Yeah, good catch.
Is there anyone
I was
else?
thinking the last one.
Any further discussion? Ms. Craig and Mr. Hampton, I think this is a good idea. I think, if I'm correct, I think I read that Berkeley County's y'all have been doing this with Berkeley County for 30 years, and it's very successful.
Yes, sir. We've been doing it for 30 years in Berkeley County and just 20-some years in Dorchester County. And one thing I'll share for you, in the last 2 years, we've seen a 53% increase in families showing up at these centers. In 2022, it was about 2,800 households, about 6,000 community members in those two counties. This year, year to date, as of November 30th, we've already seen 6,000 households, 12,300 individuals just in those two areas, and we foresee a similar spike in needed downtown for those areas around it.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Mount Pleasant Waterworks update. Ms. Durant?
Legal.
As you all know, you all voted to put money in from ARPA to work with Mount Pleasant Waterworks on not only bringing infrastructure, but also connecting residents. And we have Mr. Klum and Mr. Wate that are going to speak with you all about where we are on that.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, County Council, can you hear me all right? Okay, great. First and foremost, thank you. I appreciate the last 2 years, the opportunity that we've had to work together and the progress we've made. I want to recognize Christine, Loella, Rebecca, if you are with us. Staff has been amazing to work with. I really feel like we have made a difference in the Mount Pleasant service area. It's been a smooth process, so thank you for that. I want to present to you tonight very briefly what we have done. We have 3 legs of the stool that we have used to really abate the septic tanks in the Mount Pleasant area. So today's focus, we're going to talk about septic system maintenance, the clean water credits, and an update to the SCIP projects. So why is this a problem? Well, in Charleston County, we have seen a 289% increase in the number of septic tanks installed. Now, as you know, in the low country environment, that is a potential problem. Sea level rising, additional flooding, certainly an additional increase on our resources, our water resources, and the need to keep them clean. So the number of septic tanks, you're looking at 1,468, roughly 1,500 septic tanks in the Mount Pleasant service area. It's a map that shows their location. So let's talk about the Clean Water Credit. The Clean Water Credit was a partnership that Mount Pleasant Waterworks and the county, a joint venture to lessen the financial barriers to entry. So how can we help customers financially tie on to the publicly available sewer system? This is a map, this is an interactive map that our customers can look at. So if you are a customer in Mount Pleasant and you apply for a Clean Water Credit, you can track the progress of that. When we initiated this program 2 years ago, 10 or so participants a year, that was my hope. That's what I told you I felt like would be a successful program. We're sitting at 22 completed projects. So we have exceeded the 10 per year, and we have 74 total applicants in process. This shows that there is a need for assistance, financial assistance, to tie the septic tanks into the sewer system. If you're a customer and you have applied, you can find the county or town, click on the pie chart, and it would actually show your location. This is an interactive web page if you wanted to find that. Pulling that out so that you can see it, I know that was a small map. The right-hand side shows our county progress. We have had currently 35 inquiries. That means they are somewhere in the process, and 15 total completed projects. Now, 15 and 7, totaling 22, doesn't sound like a large number, but I want you to remember those are 22 families. Those are 22 families that have access to clean, safe water, public sewer system. That has improved 22 families' quality of lives. So. Now let's talk about the SCIP grant projects. This is on the left-hand side, clean water credit. That is available for individuals that have access to the sewer system, and there's just a financial barrier to tie in. The middle block, the SCIP grant, those are individuals that do not have infrastructure at their location. And as you know, we partnered with the county to provide infrastructure dollars through the SCIP grant. So Mount Pleasant Waterworks applied and received 2 separate awards. Shem Creek and the 7 Mile received $14 million. And the Snowden Phase 3 project, Mount Pleasant Waterworks and the county, we are 50-50 partners, and we received $8 million for the Snowden community. So briefly, the Shem Creek, we have $2.5 million under contract. Won't go through the timeline completely, but you can see the 3 town projects along with the county projects as well. So they are underway, and we are on track with the Shem Creek and the 7 Mile grant. Our partnership grant, which is the Snowden community, Snowden Phase 3, $6.3 million under contract. That completes the Snowden community sewer system. Monumental day for us. We have been working on this for a very, very long time together. So to be able to stand before you and say that Phase 3 is fully funded and we are on track to complete that, hats off to us for getting that done. We have been holding community meetings, numerous meetings. We have been meeting with the community leadership, along with the entirety of that community. Their silt fence is installed today, construction fence is installed today, and the contractor should receive that notice to proceed by December 9th. My hope was we'll be turning dirt very soon. It will be up to the contractor, that community, whether or not they want to start before Christmas or delay that until after the Christmas holidays. But they will have that notice to proceed by December 9th. Monumental day for us, so really excited about that. All right, so the third leg, I told you there are 3 legs to our approach, would be individuals that do not have access to public sewer. So if you live in a home, a lot of those are county properties, and they do not today have access to public sewer. I will always tell you that I think the best option for any home is to have access to public water and sewer infrastructure. But if you don't have that, I feel what we're going to present to you today is the second best option. So with that, I'm going to have Ross Watte, my colleague, is going to take it.
Thank you, Alan. Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So yes, the third leg of this is a septic maintenance program. How are we going to help those who do not have access to our system? As Alan mentioned, there's about 1,500 septic systems throughout Mount Pleasant. There are about close to 900 total septic systems that do not have access, that may not have access for a while to our infrastructure whenever that potential happens to extend. That's the number we're sitting at right now. So how do we help these folks? How do we help them potentially have a program to have something to help them with their systems? So that red outline is our 208 service area. We came up with a plan. We came up with a program. This thing was a process of researching other locations that had maintenance ordinances for septic systems throughout the state. Also, EPA guidance had some very good information on this. So we came up with a plan that would provide a service with a $15 monthly fee that would include annual inspections, septic pump out for every 5 years, and a $3,000 insurance coverage for any damage that they may have, something that may fail on their system, and assistance with repair coordination. So to go back to that one more time, annual inspection, it's a yearly inspection where our crew goes out, our tiered inspectors who will be tiered certified, to look at the grounds, make sure these things aren't being driven over, they're not impeded by growth, vegetation that would impair the drain fields, and also have a look inside the tank itself. The pump out every 5 years would be done by the tiered professionals that do this for a living, to go out to the tank itself and pump it out every 5 years. The $3,000 coverage, we came up with that dollar figure because visiting with haulers, which we recently had a meeting with them, $3,000 covers the potential value of replacing a drain field, typical drain field, and it is the number one thing that fails on these septic systems. And the assistance with repair coordination. We know folks that have a system in their backyard might not know a whole lot about it. And they'll ask us, hey, yeah, we know our system's failed. Can you help us coordinate the repairs? We can do that. The program also allows them to coordinate those repairs as well if they want to, but the $3,000 coverage would help them for most of it, if not all that repair work. Any questions? Let me cover one more thing if I can, sorry. We have right now, so we're kicking off January 1st with a voluntary component of it. So anybody can join. Anybody who does not have access to sewer or anybody that needs to get on this septic maintenance program can do it. There is a mandatory component we have started right now with new construction. Anybody who moves in the Mount Pleasant area that is building a brand new home, it's on our water system, but has to install a septic system, they will be mandatory, folks. I think we only got one or two. That doesn't happen very often. I think we've got one or two of those in the standby right now to start that project, that portion of it.
So, brief presentation. I want to conclude with, I think over the last 2 years ago when we were discussing this, I feel we didn't have a clear path. Today, I feel like we have a very clear, very focused path for individuals that have availability, for individuals that will be getting availability through the SCIP funding, and for those that don't have availability. So I commend you for the work that you've done, for the support that you've given us. Thank you again, Christine, Loella, Rebecca, for your support. I think this is very progressive for South Carolina. I'm excited to start this. I think we've done a good job together, so thank you. Any questions?
Yes, sir, Mr. Darby.
Sir, I know the Snowden Knights are very happy and elated in terms of what's being done for them, and much applause for you and your organization. But my question is, and I know it's been contentious over the years, but are the residents of Snowden still required to join the city of Mount Pleasant in order to procure service from Waterworks?
Excellent question. So as you know, that ordinance annexation requirement has been a barrier for many, many years. I certainly recognize that, and I also recognize the septic tank issue as well. So obviously I've been in this position for 4 years. One of the first things that we worked with Mount Pleasant Town Council along with our commissioners to change was to modify that ordinance so that anyone that has an existing septic tank can now join Mount Pleasant Waterworks public sewer without annexing into the town. So that ordinance was changed. That was the first rock to move to start this process. We've built these other legs of the stool around that rock being moved.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you very much, sir. That's very good news to hear, really. Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Any further questions? Mr. Klump, thank you very much. But I do have one question. I want to make sure if someone has a lot and they want to build a house and they don't have an existing septic tank system, they will have to annex to get sewer.
That's correct. So any lot in Mount Pleasant today that has no septic tank on it, so new growth, new development, will have to comply with Mount Pleasant, the town of Mount Pleasant's annexation requirements. Now, part of that requirement for non-contiguous properties, and it does get fairly technical. There are 4 points that will qualify you to tie into our system. One of those is a covenant agreement. So if you are non-contiguous, you would not have to annex, but you would have to agree that upon becoming contiguous, that you annex. But you are correct, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both. This is a great beginning. I think we made some great progress here. It's going to really help some people because, as we all agree, it certainly is a health and safety issue.
Well, I agree with you, and thank you again for your support.
Thank you all. All right, boards and commissions.
Mr. Chairman, our items A through H, Mrs. Salisbury, just have one person, one appointment.
Yes.
Move for approval items 3A
Second.
through H.
Moved and seconded. Is there anyone here for those spots A through H that would like to be recognized and speak? Yes, ma'am. Would you come up to the microphone and identify yourself and which board or commission you're applying for?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm applying for the Library Board of Trustees.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, that is, we're gonna invite y'all up too, but we're doing all the ones but the library right now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. A through H, is there anyone else that's applying for a board or commission that's not a library board commission? Okay, seat, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve 3A through 3H. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay. 3I, Library Board of Trustees. We have 4 appointments, 4 openings.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I would nominate the 3 incumbents, Baxter, Breeze, and Rawl, and then for reappointment, and then Brady. That's Rodia Baxter, Enrique Henry Greaves, A. Victor Rawl, and Matt Brady.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mr. Kabrowski.
It's a process we all make appointments.
We all can make nominations to be.
Okay, I would nominate Graham Horsman, Alyssa Bortolazzi, and Forrest Bajork, and Robin Slicker.
Okay. Can you give the clerk time to get those? I am. I'm gonna ask them to speak, but I'd like to get the nominations first. Any other nominations? Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the library board seat? Would you all come forward and speak? Give you each a minute or two. Yes, ma'am. If you state your name.
Yeah, my name's Alessa Bertoluzzi.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. My address is, I wrote up something, so I was just going to read from that.
Great.
Okay, my address is 7426 Jenkins Hill Road, Edisto Island. I'm here today to introduce myself and ask for your consideration to be a member of the Charleston County Library Board of Trustees. My first experience being on a board was 25 years ago when I was asked to join the Somerville Dorchester Museum Board as the treasurer, since I had business ownership and money management experience. I served for 10 years, the last 5 of which I presided as president. I also served on Little League Baseball Challenger League's board for several years since my autistic son was a participant and I wished to help out. I was able to do all of this while running my automotive shop and being a single mom because I believe I have good time management skills and a dedication to my community. Since moving to Edisto from Somerville in 2016, I have arranged several events there. They include CPR training, Serve Safe food safety training for the food and beverage workers that our restaurant community eagerly supported, a fundraiser for the Gullah Farm and youth training organization called Marshview Farm. They're actually in Beaufort County, but they're friends of mine. And for the 3rd year in 2025, now organized the Memorial Weekend service that is held the Sunday prior to Memorial Day, where Reverend Chick Morrison kindly provides his sanctuary. I feel that service to one's community is important, and I like to set an example for my children and grandchildren. My relationship with the library so far has included having my granddaughter involved in their Saturday morning sessions, their summer reading program, use of the community rooms in Hollywood, and promoting some of the services that have been specifically provided at the Edisto branch. I understand that the library services are broad and the people that it serves are diverse. As a new board member, I recognize that I will need to catch up with past and present concerns. I am willing to spend the time to do so. I have read the bylaws and the Library Bill of Rights and feel that I can serve in a helpful way. I've always been able to work well with others and try to encourage others to participate equally. Owning a business that was typically run by men and that was also a customer service business, I learned people skills that I feel serve well on a board. I can think outside of the box, and I try to build consensus when appropriate. The dynamics of being on a board can be tricky, but I would welcome the opportunity to serve all of Charleston County and represent my immediate community of Edisto Island. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Susan Milliken. I live on James Island. In looking more closely at the South Carolina Constitution, I believe I'm prohibited from being appointed to this position. I serve as an elected official presently for the James Island Public Service District, and I'm disallowed by the Constitution to serve in dual positions. My term ends at the end of December, so my thought in applying was that these folks or new board members would be sworn in January. However, this appointment is being made tonight and Tuesday, so I believe that, really it's important to stick with the letter of the law on ethical issues, and I'd like to withdraw my application. But since I have a moment to speak, it's going to be hard for me to sit down, but I'll hurry. It appears that you guys have nominated 2 slates, a great slate of incumbents and a new person, and then a new slate of new folks. So if any of the folks on the new slate are not here this evening, I think that speaks volumes. So I would definitely, go down your list. It takes a while to apply. We all put lots of time into it. So if folks aren't here tonight, that speaks volumes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, can I address that a second? If somebody's not here because of a death in the family?
I don't think so. No, sir. No, sir. Mr. Brady.
Hey there. Mr. Chair, members of council, for those of you I don't know yet, my name is Matt Brady, and I'm excited about the possibility of serving on this board. I'm passionate about public service, and I think I could bring that energy to the library. I don't have to tell y'all that libraries are so much more than places just to borrow books. We just heard that from this presentation with the United Way. They're vibrant community hubs that connect people to opportunities, to knowledge, and to each other. From free internet access to educational programs, libraries provide critical services that help residents of all ages. And I'm a dad. I've got 2 little ones, 2 and 5, and I've got to experience firsthand how libraries can spark curiosity and love of learning. Programs like Storytime, we use it all the time, and family-friendly events make libraries an essential resource for families in our community. In my day job in economic development, I also see how libraries can empower individuals to build skills and compete in today's tough job market by providing tools for upskilling, skilling, and professional growth. Libraries strengthen our workforce and drive economic vitality. If I'm fortunate enough to serve, I'll work to ensure that our library remains innovative, accessible, and responsive to the needs of our residents. And I'll collaborate with staff and great community partners to continue to make our libraries essential hubs for learning, connection, and opportunity. Thank you for your time, and thanks for everything y'all do for this community.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for asking me. My name is Amy Ball, and I'm excited about the possibility of working on the Board of Trustees because I truly believe that libraries are the heart of the community, and I would love to have a hand in guiding that. I have a master's in library science from USC. I spent 16 years working in a public school library on James Island, and what I found over those years is that the library is for everybody. We had an extremely diverse population of students, faculty, and staff, and we made sure that everybody found something that they needed there, whether it was the book that they asked us to buy for them, or movies for the classroom, or just a space for people to come and survive and thrive in a high school environment. We did all that in our high school library. And what I see the county library doing is, instead of focusing on my high school population, I see the opportunity to work with the entire county population, from babies to grandparents and everybody in between, and in meeting their needs and in finding out what their needs are. And they're different for everybody. We have a very diverse community, and one set of books or one set of movies or one set of meeting rooms, it doesn't fit everybody. We have to address all of our population, and I'm really excited about helping to guide that, our library. I think it's a great library already, and I think it would be fun to work with it in the future. I would be honored to serve as a trustee on this board. Thank you for your attention, and happy to answer questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I think I served with you about 12 years, if I'm not mistaken. My background is rather diverse and intense with regard to service. I've been a solicitor, a circuit court judge, a workers' compensation commissioner, a state housing commission commissioner, a National Guard officer, a county councilman, and a few other things that I can't remember at this point in time. I apologize for my lack of intellect. I've enjoyed working on the board. It has been an experience. The library faces a few difficulties that y'all read about recently, and I think that's important for folks that have a long-standing basis in this community to be able to address not adversarially, but to address holistically. I read the paper today about Ms. Weaver, our Secretary of Education, and see the trauma that is being caused and generated by some of that. I can't condone nor approve, nor quite frankly, castigate her efforts. All I can do is read, which I do a lot. I'm probably one of the library's most active patrons. I probably read at least one book a week. But anyway, I would greatly appreciate the opportunity to serve 4 more years. I know it's time sensitive that you get 8 years on the board and that's it. I've served my first term. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with the staff and the libraries and building out that which we as members of council, when I was with you in 2014, passed a referendum to do that. We just about finished it. And I think all of the reports have been very, very positive. Lack of a better term, glad to answer any of your questions. Thank you for your service. I would like to be reappointed if possible. If not, I certainly understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Pryor. I just wanted to add to Mr. Enrique Henry Grace. 4 years ago, I asked this gentleman to come serve on the library board because he is Hispanic, and he serves the Hispanic community real well, and I really thought that that would bring insight to the library board. And from my understanding, he's been doing a great job. He's the only Hispanic-speaking person on the library board, and so I'm asking my colleagues to remember that because we want to be inclusive of everybody, not just a select few. And so when we say inclusion, that means Hispanic, anybody. But I think this does us well to have somebody on that board that gives us a different perspective from the Hispanic community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further comments? Mr. Kabrowski?
Well, I just have one mentioned. I can't speak for people that aren't here, but I can speak for Graham Horsman. He's out of this country because of a death in the family, so I don't think that should be held against him under those circumstances.
I also would like to highlight, attendance certainly makes a difference for individuals who are appointed to these boards and commissions, and certainly thank you to the clerk and staff that provided us with some insight based on those records, and certainly whereby being inclusive is certainly that's part of my life's work. I think they have to come and show up in order to make a difference and make a positive difference as it relates to that. So I think that when we're looking at individuals to appoint or reappoint, we have to make sure that they have taken the task seriously by even showing up.
All right, any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you?
So the people that you can vote between are Redea Baxter, Enrique Grace, Victor Rawl, Alyssa Bortoluzzi, Forrest Bajork, Matt Brady, Graham Horsman, and Robin Sickler, and you can choose 4. Nobody nominated her?
Nobody nominated her? Would the board have a problem if I nominated Ms. Ball? She's here.
Topics are still open.
She made the effort to come.
I was about to nominate her, but
Okay.
I thought.
Well,
you know,
we'll co-nominate her.
Yeah.
Now I move that we close the
Is she
nomination.
from James Island that I heard? Or is she from James Island?
Madam Clerk, would you please repeat that list one more time now that
Yeah.
we've got everything?
Okay, Redea Baxter, Enrique Grace, Victor Rawl, Amy Ball, Alyssa Bertolezzi, Forrest Bajork, Matt Brady, Graham Horsman, and Robin Sickler.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Boykin?
Ms. Baxter, Mr. Grace, Judge Rawl, and Ms. Bertolucci.
Mr. Darby?
Could you come back to me, please, ma'am?
Mrs. Honeycutt?
Rawl, Horsman, Bertoluzzi, and Brady.
Rawl, Bortoluzzi, Brady,
And Horsman.
and Horsman. Okay, Mr. Kabrowski?
You can come back to me, too.
Mr. Middleton?
Baxter, Rawl, Ball, and Bertoluzzi.
Mr. Moody?
Judge Rawl, Bertoluzzi, Brady, Horsman.
Mr. Pryor?
I'm going with Baxter, Graves, Rawl, and Brady.
Mr. Werman?
Baxter, Grace, Rawl, and Brady.
Mr. Sass?
Who hadn't gone yet?
Mr. Darby?
Okay.
And Mr. Kabrowski?
All right, Mr. Darby?
Y'all playing chess or something?
Chairman votes last.
I'm just asking a question. Rawls, Horseman, Brady, Bertolucci. Lucci, is that his Italian enough, ma'am?
You said Rawl, Bertolowski, Brady, and what was the last one?
Horseman?
Bajort?
No, Brady.
Oh, Horsman.
Horseman.
Okay. And Mr. Kabrowski?
Horsman, Bertoluzzi, Robin Slicker, and Vic Rawl.
Okay.
For me,
Mr. Sass?
Horseman.
Horseman?
Horseman, Rawl,
I gave up.
Bertolucci, and Grace.
All right, give me one moment.
I have to write down which one's got the vote between. Yeah. Oh, gotcha. What's the second? Gotcha.
Okay, so the nominations are Judge Rawl, Bortolowski, Brady, and Horsman.
Thank you. So those 4 will move forward to our meeting on Tuesday.
Say the names again, I'm sorry.
Judge Rawl got 9 votes, Bertolowski got 7, Mr. Brady got 5, and Horsman got 5.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those 5 will move forward to our county council meeting on Tuesday. I thank everybody for their interest and for coming and working hard for this. It's a as everybody can see, we have a great library system and a good director and people that work for us. And we want to keep it that way. So thank you all very much. Okay,
Mr.
next
Chair,
thing.
move to approve 4A through G.
Second.
4A through D, Ms. Reverend Middleton, seconded by Ms.
G as in G.
G, I'm sorry, and seconded by Ms. Honeycutt. Any questions about any one of those? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay. Next item, financial incentives for Project Trio.
Approval.
Moved by Mr. Pryor and Mr. Boykin.
Can we have a discussion, sir?
We can certainly have a discussion. Yes, sir, it's been moved and seconded, and now we can have a discussion.
And I have some questions, and Mr. Dykes has reached out to me, and we've been playing telephone tag, and as you know, I've been out of town for family purposes, so no disrespect that I haven't gotten back. I just got back in town yesterday, and I want to acknowledge you have reached out, and we've been going back and forth. So thank you for that. And I just have a few questions. The question one is, this is inclusion in the project in the Charleston Colleton MCIP. What is the address of this project?
The address is in the city of North Charleston.
And how is that related to the Colleton County? I mean, we mentioned that the last time I asked, there was a legal fiction that allowed us to do that. And my question, I didn't have the presence of mind, what is that legal fiction that allows us to put properties that aren't adjacent to Colleton County?
Well, good question, and that's one that has got a lot of history behind it. The General Assembly years ago initially passed that Multi-County Industrial Park Act, with the idea that there would be literal abutting properties within separate counties that would collaborate together. They would use revenue on the front end to seed a actual business park, and then they would divide the revenues as tenants and companies located in that park. That quickly gave way, however, to a more, as I've dubbed it, a legal fiction use of the tool, and that is to say that as the practice has evolved, when you place a property in a multi-county park, it's a paper transaction. It's done by ordinance, but it does result in certain incentives being enhanced at the state level for the company that locates in the county, as long as you've got a affluent county sharing revenue with a less affluent county. So, the magic of us in Colleton is that we're a developed county, and they're, I believe at this point, a least developed county status. So we put things in the park. Colleton gets 1.75% of the tax revenues that result from it, which obviously helps them fund their economic development effort and do other things.
Well, thank you for answering that question fully. Then the other thing I saw, that it would create 500 new jobs. Is that the most recent estimate?
Yeah, yes, sir, it is. And I believe that estimate to be somewhat conservative. I'm working in a confidential vein on this project, with the code name, and we'll know more definitive information on this within a week.
And I always want to admire your skill, and I think that's a great thing to have new jobs. But as I always say in these things, and why I would vote no, I don't know how we can pick and choose who pays taxes or not. As a small business person myself, there's thousands of people in Charleston County just like me. And if we had tax incentives for us, we would create much more than 500 jobs. I just don't see how we can pick some businesses to get incentives. Yes, they will help the people that own those businesses. They will create more jobs. But for all the small business people who pay taxes, we would benefit the same way if we had those incentives, and it would be even more. That's the reason, if no disrespect for your skill in doing this, but that's why I would say no, because I think we would all benefit from the same tax incentives or lower taxes as these big businesses, and we would create jobs and be able to spend money on our families and expand our businesses and hire people. But thank you.
Oh, yes, sir. And
Thank you.
I'm certainly not going to disagree with you on that, because I think there's a lot of ways to look at it. I will say that the purpose behind manufacturers being incentivized is just that they're viewed by the General Assembly to be basically the top of the pyramid, where if you're able to leverage them and the type of payroll they bring from a different city into your community, all the local purchasing they do, the hiring, it multiplies. It has a multiplier effect that's pretty magnificent. And that seeds all kind of smaller businesses doing better.
But
so
the power to tax is an awesome responsibility of the government, that we all takes money from people for the common good. And the fact that we're smaller than that, it also comes from our pockets as well. We could use it just as well, but I understand. Thank you, sir.
Good point.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. 6A, Northbridge Bike Pedestrian Improvements, Raise Grant Application Consultant. Do we have is there any information about this, Mr. Pryor?
I spoke with staff, and I spoke with a couple of council members. I'm a little bit concerned here now because the money that was going to match this, I thought we already had, but this money was coming from the third half penny sales tax. So if there's no money to match this, then there's no need to spend $5,000, if we don't have the funds. So what I would ask that we probably do is maybe look at this later on down the road, but, from what I'm being told by the administrative staff, there is no funding to match this. I thought, and, that we had funding, but it was based on the new half penny sales tax. Right. So am I correct from what I'm saying? That's what I was told.
Yes, sir.
So what I don't want us to do is, be enthusiastic about, filling out. I mean, we've been turned down, I think, 3 times, already with this. 3 times we've been turned down. So if we got matching funds to match this $35 million or $25 million, I don't have a problem with it. But if we don't, then I suggest we hold off until we do. I don't know how the council members feel, but that's, and this is important. I really want this in North Charleston. I fought for this for many, many years.
I know you did. Yes, sir. Mr. Werman?
Is the match like disqualifying? Is the fact that there's not approved match? Like, what is that? I mean, is it a waste? I guess I'm asking, is it a waste of $5,000 or not?
Yes. Mr. Werman, for the grant, there is no required match because of the characteristics of the districts that are around this area. What Mr. Pryor is referring to is that the project estimate is probably between 60 and 65 million to build the project. The 25 million that the grant would produce, there's no identified sources for the delta for the construction of the project.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a hard time understanding the difference between an unpassed referendum that would not have been approved as of 2021 when we applied the first time, and the current status we're in now. So I guess I'm failing to see the distinction here, but and this is a very needed project, but okay.
Mr. Werman, that's what I thought too, but when I was told that today, I'm like, wow, I thought when we first started this, money was set aside.
I don't see any distinction there, but folks can vote how they want to vote.
Further discussion? Mr. Moody?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would agree, Mr. Pryor. I've stated my one objection to the process, which was the loop that goes over to the graveyard. Otherwise, I think there's great connectivity, but
You don't bother nobody today.
lest we forget, the Northbridge Bicycle Pedestrian Improvement was one of the projects listed on the half-cent sales tax referendum. So people talk about Mark Clark. They didn't just reject Mark Clark. They rejected Rivers Avenue Mobility, North Bridge Bicycle, Mall Drive, South US 17 corridors. They rejected annual allocations, which includes resurfacing, bike, pedestrian, local paving. They rejected transit. They rejected Greenbelt. So for those people in the, we got to listen to the taxpayers, we got to listen to constituents vote, we got to pay attention to the vote, you have to vote no. Because the voters just told you not to vote for it.
Briefly, and I would like to, not to refight that, but with all due respect, I've heard nothing but, for the 2 years I've been on here, the very reason you put those on was to force people to do that. So I find it very, and respectfully disingenuous to make that argument now. I'm almost in disbelief, because that was done on purpose. You put it together so that people had no choice. So if they rejected 526, they had to do that. We all know that. So I mean, to say that is I'm in disbelief that one would raise that, having forced that together when we knew why that was done. The people voted overwhelmingly, and I'll say it again, I've said it before, every precinct in your district but one, which voted by 3 votes against 526 because it was all put together.
And against everything else.
Because it was forced to be put together.
We can
people
argue
had
this
no
all night if you
choice.
want.
But I just wanted to say that because, thank you.
All right, Mr. Boykin.
I think it would be speculative at best for any of us to guess why any individual voter rejected the referendum. We all have our thoughts, and I've got a litany of reasons that have been expressed to me from my own constituents, and I'm not here to say one over the other. But what I will remind this council is a referendum in 2016 passed by 52 to 48%, and it didn't have 526 on it. I think there's not an appetite for additional taxes. Not saying that's what everybody voted, but I think we need to be mindful that the last one didn't go so well. And there was a razor-thin margin. So regardless of why the voters voted against it, to count on them suddenly in 2 years in 2026 changing their minds and all of a sudden they will support a sales tax referendum, I think might be foolhardy. So I think we should be mindful of that. And I think the proper course here is, and I agree with Mr. Pryor, I want the North Bridge built also. But I think it's the cart and the horse thing again, that if we have no funds available to do the project, it seems like it'd be prudent to see what 2026 brings. And I'm here to say that I'll support putting that back on a referendum in 2026.
Chairman. Thank you. Mr. Darby.
Why are we metaphorically fighting among each other? And the reason I ask that question is that every day, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of persons pay 32 cents on every gallon of gas. The question is, where is the money going? And the money is going to the upstate.
Thank you.
We are paying taxes, 32 cents on every gallon. Every gallon. We are not getting the money. So the fight is not with us.
Yes, sir.
It ought to be with the upstate.
Thank you.
Our representatives should be fighting for this because we are paying our fair share. So now we are arguing among ourselves. I don't understand that. We need to get our elected representatives to have those dollars sent back to us, and we can get everything we want paved. Again, 32 cents out of every gallon. Hundreds of thousands of people every day. We're talking millions and millions of dollars, and we are not getting it. Now, why the upcountry, the millions want to punish us, I don't know. I really don't know. What have we done to them? But that's the question. Why are we fighting among ourselves when the fight should not be? It ought to be having our representatives to do a better job for Charleston County.
Mr. Chair, I was going to sing a verse or two of Let There Be Peace on Earth and Let It Begin With Me, but after Mr. Darby's exposition, I think I will let it rest on that. Because I don't think the fight truly is, again, rehashing a 526 versus all of these other projects. I actually agree that there may not have been the appetite this time for additional taxes. People were talking about their groceries. They were talking about not being able to afford staple items. They were talking about being overextended and exhausted, even though, economic numbers did not necessarily, match, some of those things, because, economically, America is doing pretty well overall. But again, there potentially was just not the appetite. It could have been, and I agree with being speculative, if 526 were not on there, if none of these were named and just the green belts, it potentially still could have failed. We don't know. Again, going by the pattern of what we've done previous by having one question, I was using that as a template for my own personal choice, to just have a one question referendum this time again. But I absolutely agree that when looking at the amount of taxes generated for these kind of infrastructure projects, it is intentional not to send some of those funds back to the Low Country. Not only just in the Charleston region, but Beaufort, Hilton Head, all of us are suffering the same thing if we follow it well. And so we need infrastructure in the Low Country. For 50-something years of my life, these are the same roads. Some of the roads have never changed since I've been in existence. And so I really feel that now is the time for us to band together as a council, try to figure out, how we can move forward together, because it's going to be together. There is no spilt milk, right? And so nobody's crying. And so now it's time for us to come together, figure out how we could leverage, I know in times past on different things, we've sent up resolutions even, to Columbia in a pinch, when we called emergency meetings, had to go today. And so this seems to be a crisis based on our infrastructure down here in the Low Country, that we have to do something. Certainly, there are other products that should be considered, like rail, or we see the bus rapid transit coming online very progressively, and seems to be, people are accepting that. We have to have a multi-tiered solution moving forward to this problem.
Right. Good term, multi-tiered, sir.
Any further, Mr. Pryor?
Mr. Chairman, all that's good, but the question on the table for me is, how do we get Northbridge done? Okay, so if we apply for this grant, is there a time limit if the grant is passed to match this? Can somebody tell me that? Because I'm thinking about the Northbridge right now. All this other stuff, y'all can talk about later on. I'm thinking about a project that I brought to this table 4 or 5 years ago that I really want to see get done. Riding over that bridge every day, seeing folks walking with a bicycle, weaving in and out of traffic, it's heartbreaking.
And in the dark.
In the dark, too. So, all this other stuff y'all can figure out later. My problem with now is, where are we going to get the $40 million from to match this, and how long, if we get a grant, that grant is good before we got to use it?
Do we know if indeed or not we will receive any portion of the $75 million? If
Well,
indeed,
all that should be coming back down. That's taxpayers' money.
Right.
So, that's not if we're going to be as when. But I'm just saying, could anybody tell me, if not tonight, maybe by Tuesday, if this grant goes through and passes, is there a time limit before we got to spend the money?
Mr. Pryor, we're not aware of any time limit to have expended the funds, so we're not aware of any.
What, is this a
So-
motion for the?
Surely if you waited 10 years, they would ask for it back or something.
Right,
but-
if you waited 10 years or so.
Right.
I'm sure
So we're
there's,
just asking
I'm sure
to
there's a
ask
time
for it,
limit
right?
on, there's always a time limit on these.
We
things.
will find out for you by Tuesday.
Let's find out by Tuesday.
Can we do this? Can we move it forward until Tuesday to find out, is there a time limit? And then we can move forward?
A quick Google search in the back has told me that the time limit is 2033.
2033. And we're in 2020 for 9 years.
dead. How long?
10 years.
Okay.
What?
Yeah, so,
Sound like a long take.
8 years from
We just asking to do the grant? Isn't that what the motion is? Or am I
Well,
mistaken?
the ask is that we spend the money so that the grant can be updated and sent off. And we may get it.
We may not.
So
We've applied for it several times before, and we feel like we've gotten a little bit closer each time.
The question is to spend the money that asked for it to be granted
Yeah,
back.
and it's
Okay, I
a
just wanted to
question to spend
understand.
about $5,000 to upgrade, to update it. Do we have a motion on this?
No.
Pryor, if I may just bend your ears, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, my mother turn. May I speak, sir?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Mr. Pryor, I would ask that you reconsider, sir, because there's,
Yeah.
in terms of having this not voted upon, sir, or not to put up the application, sir, which is a mere $5,000, sir. I think as there's an adage which says, it's best to have and don't need than to need and don't have. So I would ask that we follow through with the $5,000 application. And if it's just not successful, we can find, as he said, 2033, as opposed to not sending it at all. And then we know for sure we won't get it done. So I'm saying at least this would be a precursor.
Well, if somebody wants to make, I just asked a question, there's been no motion yet.
Okay.
But I just asked the question, you know, is it wise to do that?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know you're so fiscally conservative, I mean, you know, I don't, Mr. Darby?
Me and Mr. Middleton mixed up.
I'm not ashamed, let me say that.
No, but if it's the will to move it forward, but if we get turned down this time, it's gotta be some kind of politics, there's something playing in this.
Yes, sir.
Because you know, from what I understand, the application's scored pretty good the last couple of times. So if it fails this time, then it just
Yes, sir.
can't be, you know, the application ain't right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Pryor?
Nay.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was a nay. Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Pryor, you're going to talk about the teddy bear toss?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow, what time is that tomorrow, 11:30?
11.
11, wow. That means I gotta leave home by 8 o'clock.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, because I'm telling you, those wrecks they had on Ashley Phosphate today, two of them shut the interstate down. Yes, sir, this morning. Well, anyway, we having our annual teddy bear toss. I'm asking council members to show up. Mr. Darby, I need you to show
Sir,
up.
I'll be at school, sir. Thank you
Listen,
very
I don't
much,
want to
sir.
hear that school excuse. Every time you ask me to come to the school, I come to the school. So I'm asking you to be here tomorrow. Okay?
Same bad time,
Same bad time, same bad channel, 11 o'clock. I'm looking to see your face in the place. All right? You can't tell me no.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Henry Darby. And, you know, all those who can come, I know you're busy, I know, I'm just joking with you.
I'll just ask my level leader, sir.
Tell them to call me.
Yes, sir.
I know your level leader.
Thank you, sir.
No, but Mr. Darby, I know you support, but.
Yes, sir.
It's a good time for everybody. And the employees love it, and they love to see the face of the council members. So if you can be here tomorrow, sure. Reverend Milton don't go to work till 12 o'clock tomorrow.
Is there a virtual option?
No. The answer is no. So
On a hologram to preach my own funeral.
Call
And
in
so
tomorrow.
I'm gonna hologram myself in.
Listen, I promised that to fight traffic, I'll have you out there by 11, so you can be there by 12. But anyway,
gosh.
it's a fun time for all, and it's to help the, you know, the least fortunate, you know, during Christmas time. So, Mr. Gabrowski, I'd like to see your face in the place. All right? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank y'all for coming. See ya.
Ms. Craig and Ms. Durant, may I have a word with you two lovely ladies prior to you going, please?
Mr. Darby, was that Naya? Was that your daughter? Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah.